Running a business is unpredictable, but with the right insurance, you can face the unexpected with confidence. At Northwest Insurance Agency, we protect what matters most: your people, your property, and your future. Whether it's liability, property, or workers' comp, we tailor coverage to fit your business needs. Because when you're covered, you can focus on what really matters: growing your business. Call us today for a free quote at 1-855-887-5656 or visit us at nwagencies.com. Northwest Insurance Agency, protection that works as hard as you do.
This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let we go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. Happy Easter. This is dropping to you guys on Easter Sunday, so I hope you guys are having a great day with family and friends and all of that. But SMU is having a great weekend as well, and that is because basketball picked up another commitment on the transfer front. We'll talk about that on the Pony Express podcast, presented by our friends at Northwest Insurance Agency, Mark Villasana. Make sure you give him a call, 214-352-5656. Go over your insurance rates with him and reach out to him as well at info@nwagencies.com. So we're going to have this podcast drop today. Dean Ralski will have a podcast later this week to talk about the basketball team as a whole, maybe do some recruiting because the Mustangs will, of course, have some recruiting news, I'm sure, to talk about. And then he'll also talk about the spring game preview. We've got a lot of pods coming your way. So wanted to drop this one today because I am headed out of the country for 2 weeks. So Dean Ralski will have you guys on the podcast covered for the next 2 weeks. Hope you guys enjoyed kind of our last minute podcast on Friday where we broke down TJ Harden as well as Kyle Cooper and Chris Johnson Jr. joining us on the show. So busy pod that day as well, but we've got a lot to get to. So do want to jump right in here as SMU Basketball did land one of the top available wings in the transfer portal. Big chance for SMU to upgrade their spot at the 3, I think, with this pickup. And that is Corey Washington out of Wichita State, transfers to SMU after an All-AAC. There I go again, having to figure out the AAC, ACC lingo. But Corey Washington had a second-team All-AAC season where he averaged 13.7 points per game. He had 7.5 rebounds a game, 9 double-doubles, 34 steals. He started 33 of 34 games on Wichita State's schedule. And I think a really important piece to this as well is that he shot a career-best 34.7% from three-point range. He originally started his career at St. Peter's, where he averaged double-digit points for them as well. In 2023-24. He also had an all-MAC freshman all-MAAC. I don't know. I hope people just say MAC, I guess, at that point. But all-freshman team honors as well, 6.8 points, 4.9 rebounds in the 22-23 season. He has 1 year of eligibility remaining. He joins Jaron Pierre from Jacksonville State in the class of transfers for SMU, as well as Nana Owosu-Anane, the Brown transfer who committed before the transfer portal window even opened. I can tell you SMU has a trio that is very good, but the weird thing about the transfer portal with basketball is that teams continue to recruit players even when they've committed in the transfer portal. I've seen this across the country a couple times now, and for basketball teams, that's kind of a departure from what we're normally used to. And the money, again, is being thrown around like crazy. We saw this. PJ Haggerty from Memphis entered the transfer portal. He's asking for $4 million. Denzel Aberdeen from Florida entered the transfer portal. He's going to get a bag. All of these players are obviously taking advantage of the opportunity to make money before this house settlement gets rolled in. But it's creating a babysitting environment in basketball that isn't normally the case. There's kind of gentlemen's agreements to not really mess around with other commitments in a way, especially ones that are in this tight window or kind of in these windows where, you know, prospects, like, for example, basketball kind of has a run of commitments in the fall normally, and then guys sign early. Once guys commit, there's really kind of a gentleman's agreement to not mess with those prospects. And we're not seeing that extend over in the transfer portal. So SMU not only is having to babysit some of their commitments as well as go out and try to find a final piece for this puzzle, final piece or two for this puzzle in the 2024-25 or 25-26 season that SMU is building out its roster for. And you've got to feel pretty good if you're SMU with where things stand. You have Boopie Miller back. You have BJ Edwards back. You added Jaron Pierre. You've got a great freshman class. And then you go out and you add a sizable advantage out there on the 3 with Corey Washington, who shot the ball pretty well from beyond the arc, but really where he steps into this lineup and makes a huge impact is rebounding the basketball and adding grit, adding toughness. He's been kind of a fan favorite for Wichita State fans since he got there. Obviously just spent 1 year, but really has endeared himself with his aggressive nature of playing and how hard he goes after it on the floor. And that's something that I think SMU fans will appreciate. And when you look at the backcourt, Boopie Miller, Jaron Pierre, BJ Edwards, and then you add a Corey Washington, and then the freshman class is big enough with Jermaine O'Neal Jr. and BJ Davis-Ray that those guys can play kind of 1, 2, 3 and add size. This lineup now for SMU is totally different. Last year is a lot of issues with size in the lineup outside of kind of Cario Oquendo. Tibet Gorner didn't play much. AJ George had some size, but again, didn't play much. The starters, the main contributors, were on the smaller side. Now you look like you've upgraded that size perspective at the backcourt, and then you have Nana committed to play the 4, and you have Samet Yigitolu back. You really have some nice pieces coming in the freshman class, and I think they're in a good position overall to be a tournament team. I think that's the goal. That's the expectation in year 2 after a tied for 4th finish in the ACC in year 1. And now for Andy Enfield and his staff, they're building out their culture, which really took hold firmly into conference play, with that kind of turnaround where they got hot right before Boopie got hurt. And I think having those major pieces back, three of the leading scorers, that's important. And now the offseason is really about, and this is where this is why they want to build through the high school ranks ultimately. The development piece of this staff is what we're going to see as far as how it goes, what they put together. And if they do put together that type of development that we saw from a Matt Cross who shot the ball really well, and BJ Edwards, of course, going to being the single season steals record holder. I mean, that type of jump for a lot of these players is really what they're hoping for with some of these players in particular. Samet Yigitolu has to do that. He has to become an all-ACC player in the front court if SMU is going to take this next jump. But you even think about what SMU had in Samet in conference play this year. Before he hurt his shoulder, he was trending the right way. And that was without an entire offseason. He basically got there a day or two before school started. And so he had no offseason. He had no weight training in the offseason. He had, call it 2 months before they hit, training camp for their season. That is such a departure from what he's going to experience this year and the work that they're going to put in with him on the floor. So really, really key offseason for SMU. And we'll talk about what's next and what they're looking for in the portal in just a second. But do want to remind you guys as well about our friends at StatusJet, statusjet.com. David Henry and I had a great meeting once again last week talking about what we're going to do this fall. And he's really excited about the opportunities for SMU fans that they kind of learned about with last year with him and his crew at StatusJet, with some of these ACC games that are kind of difficult to get to. People have experienced the Virginias. Some people, took the Penn State trip, which was, a tough situation for most of those flights. But his team has a plan for a lot of these places that are also hard to get to. So looking forward to Clemson. Make sure you use your discount when you mention On the Pony Express or code PonyUpACC, and go to statusjet.com, learn more about them, and reach out to them today and get that discount for those future flight plans that you guys have with them. And what a way to travel. So appreciate Status Jet for all they do for us. As SMU looks ahead to the transfer portal window, and which for basketball still runs until April 22nd, so a couple more days, and we saw last week Johan Traore entering the transfer portal, and he's going to go somewhere and maybe get a payday for one more year, but SMU wasn't necessarily going to do that for him. They could have spent and really paid up and overpaid to keep him if they wanted to. But now they're going to go out and they're going to add a 4-man. They're going to also look for a shooter. That's what they really want to find. And they want those players to be upgrades over, a Johan Traore. And they still need another shooter to really help this lineup be complete. And I don't know necessarily who they're really going to target for both of those roles in a way, but that's what they're looking for. They know that they need just kind of one more jolt of shooting prowess on this basketball team, and they've really been able to kind of upgrade some of that with your Jaron Pierre, and you hope that BJ Edwards takes a step forward and all of those things. But they really, I think, have a really good situation as a whole with this roster, and they don't feel like they necessarily have to go out and spend millions on a player because they have some gaping hole. They have a really good roster that they put together, and now they're going to have a chance to kind of round that out and piece together a final piece or two that really can make it be up a notch as a whole. Like, I think collectively, you look at the players that SMU has, the known commodities, coupled with the impressive freshman class, and then you add the transfers, this roster seems like it's better. And I know the ACC as a whole is really kind of doubling down on their overall push to be a better basketball conference than they were last year. And I think there's no doubt that SMU is one of those schools that has doubled down on the basketball program. And they've also done that with Adia Barnes and hiring her. But you also have the league as a whole getting better. And that's where SMU knows. And that's part of the reason why they've spent and they've doubled down on retaining Boopie Miller, Samet Yugitolu, BJ Edwards. And then you have the freshman class, which is already thought of pretty highly. And now you've added some really impressive pieces into the fold, and I think this team is going in the right direction when it comes to the overall lineup that they're going to put out there. I really do. I think they're in a really good situation. So, do want to do a quick note here as well, as SMU does welcome Jaden Toombs into the program. He's a 4-star prospect, and he actually played in the Jordan Brand Classic, which is pretty cool for SMU to have some representation. But he was named among the top performers. And the biggest thing that I think SMU fans will like about him is he is about as consistent as you can find. Consistent production, consistent effort, and consistent wins. And you can poke holes in his game and talk about the athleticism or shooting, but you can't downplay the fact that he goes out each time he steps on the floor and puts up numbers. And that's what Jamie Shaw, our national analyst, really likes about him. He finished the Jordan Brand Classic with 4 points, 8 rebounds, 2 blocks, and a steal. So has an opportunity to be a really good college basketball player. Might not be the best pro, but it's on SMU to get the most out of him when it comes to his freshman season and beyond, of course. But they are going to need Jaden Toombs to probably come in and play some minutes. So a nice sign, playing against some of the best. He's a top 100 prospect, top 50 on the On3 industry ranking, the 4th ranked center in the country, and a massive recruiting win out of Dynamic Prep. He and his teammate Jermaine O'Neal Jr. are going to be centerpieces for this team for the foreseeable future. And it might not be next year that they become those centerpieces, but they will quickly become faces of the program, in my opinion, as they kind of build out this overall just kind of program that they're building and they're pushing towards elevating and things like that. So do also want to remind you guys that we're also presented by our friends at the Thomas Auto Group. Check out the Thomas Promise today. Brandon Thomas and his entire family obviously support SMU a lot, and being an alum, Brandon has enjoyed, I think, this partnership, and I think the coolest thing is offering that employee pricing, to our listeners, our subscribers, our viewers, and that is on new and pre-owned vehicles. So make sure you head up 75 to McKinney, check out their 3 dealerships, and learn about the Thomas Promise today.
At Thomas Auto Group, the Thomas Promise includes the low price promise,
the pre-owned promise,
and the 72-hour exchange promise.
And finally, the 100% customer satisfaction promise. So shop Thomas Auto Group today, home of the Thomas Promise.
That's right. And look, I can promise you that SMU football isn't done recruiting in the transfer portal, looking to add some key pieces themselves to this program. And I think SMU, as far as where they're at right now, they have a chance to round out this roster and put together one that is right at the top of the ACC once again. And we broke down, obviously, TJ Harden jumping into the fold on Friday. So make sure if you missed that episode, go back, listen to it. But for this cycle, they have a few final holes that they need to fill. And I think they're going to be keeping a close eye on a couple of positions. And we'll talk about some of those here. But I do want to start off with one name that is probably one of the hottest names in the transfer portal who SMU offered this weekend, and that is Keelan Marion, former BYU wide receiver return specialist. He's somebody that programs like Miami, Texas, all of the biggest of the big spenders are going after. He returned 2 kickoffs for touchdowns last season, and he's gotten numerous programs out after him already. The big thing about him is he has 2 years of eligibility remaining. He has spent 2 seasons at BYU where he started 12 games, made 25 appearances, and in 2024, he caught 24 passes for 346 yards and a touchdown. Also had 21 carries for 96 yards and 2 scores. So he kind of fits that slot player that we're talking about earlier on the last episode of the pod about where SMU maybe wants to find some spots for another player. 18 kickoffs last year for 347 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was a first-team All-American return specialist. Funny enough, Kyle Cooper and the special team staff on SMU's roster probably want to find somebody to come in and kind of shore this position up. Last year they did that, and it resulted in Brashard Smith, and the rest is history. But funny enough, Brashard really didn't get many opportunities at all to return kicks. When he did, he made the most of them, but it's kind of funny. They were looking for that kickoff return specialist, and they didn't really get it because nobody would kick it to him. So kind of one of those things where maybe SMU can find a way to bring in Keelan Marion and make a statement in doing so as well. But he really has not necessarily gotten that opportunity. So Keelan Marion is a new name to know. At least SMU did put an offer on the table, so they're jumping into that mix and seeing what they can do. And if they could find a way, man, that would really round out this wide receiver core in a big way. And I think if you're SMU, you'd have to feel a lot better about where things are going in that regard. So we'll keep a close eye on the slot position. There's a few names that are popping up into that world of things, and SMU is trying to play in that space a little bit and make an impact. And another player that is on the radar now as we kind of flip sides of the ball, but Brandon Smiley, Elon transfer, has entered the portal, and hearing that SMU is in the mix there. He has 1 year of eligibility remaining from what I understand, and or actually 2 years of eligibility remaining. And he entered the portal just a couple days ago, but Utah State, Miami, Ohio, JMU, UNC Charlotte, and he's getting close to an SMU visit from what we understand. I think they are going to end up bringing him in after this weekend. I don't think he's been snuck in over this weekend. SMU takes Easter pretty seriously, and they give the staff a lot of time off and things like that. So I would imagine they'll try to bring him in this week at some point. And so we'll keep a really close eye on that and see if it develops. But he's a really, I mean, at this point, one of the more sought after transfer defensive tackles, and fits that 6'2", 300-pound defensive lineman that SMU needs and is going after. So we'll be keeping a close eye on him. Like I said, 2024, he had 19 total tackles on the season, and that's it. But look, you're 6'2", 305. You've got 2 years of eligibility remaining. You've got size. You got a few tackles. I mean, that's the market, and it's crazy. And actually, crazy enough, ESPN doesn't even have tackles for loss. So let me see if he's got any of those on his resume from this season. He probably does. I can't imagine he really didn't have one tackle for loss on the year. Here we go. He had 1.5 tackles for loss, so he had at least one, I guess. But played well against Duke, actually, as well. So I'm sure that popped up on film for SMU. But he's somebody that they are kicking the tires on. So keep an eye on that. We'll follow up on that and see if things kind of come together there and go from there. But I think they're also looking at linebacker. Linebacker's another piece to the puzzle here that they'd like to address, and they'd like to find a way to bring in and address that position after the departure of Zach Smith. And again, we didn't see Kyle Firm out there in spring, so that's something to kind of keep an eye on as they go through it. And I think they're pretty close to having a player that they're going to bring in at the linebacker position as far as a visit goes. So, or maybe they already have. So keep it locked at ontheponyexpress.com, and we'll have you covered on that front. And just another reminder, guys, do want to remind you to reach out to Mark Villasana, 214-352-5656, Northwest Insurance Agency. They can do it all: home, auto, personal, all sorts of different aspects. They can have you covered. So Mark and his entire team are also starting a new podcast called Beyond the Policy. So looking forward to jumping on that with them here soon once we're back in town and chopping it up with him. But great partner for us, and really, really just hardworking, focused on all the right things with the insurance side of things. So reach out to him today and talk with him about that. For SMU to get a linebacker, I think they're looking for somebody who probably has multiple years of eligibility remaining, is my guess. I don't know if they are looking for a stopgap or not. Maybe they can find that in the portal, but I mean, those guys with like numerous years of eligibility remaining are harder to get, because usually if they have any sort of production at all, they're a little bit more sought after than others, obviously, if they have those skins on the wall. But I think SMU is in a good place overall when it comes to the portal and kind of who they're targeting. They've got a pretty good feel for it. And as the portal window for football runs through the 25th, we'll keep a close eye on anybody else for SMU that may or may not be entering, and we'll try to keep you guys as up to date as we can on that front, because it does get wild. I mean, it's a weird time of year for the portal and for these programs that are trying to build out these rosters, and teams are poaching other players and doing all those things. So it's weird times, but it's also good times. So SMU continues to do a good job there on the portal. Before we go any further, I do want to remind you guys about Manny's Tex-Mex. Make sure you say queso, and they'll say thank you, as you'll get 10% off your bill. That excludes alcohol and third-party delivery apps. But Manny's, there are 4 locations, whether it be Lakewood, right on Mockingbird, Saxe, Heath, or their Coit and Campbell location, which is just right down the road from me, dangerously close, about 11 minutes away. But their margaritas, great, fresh food, all their chips made in-house every day, the salsa, everything is just so fresh. So really enjoy having a good time at Manny's. Their patios are great. I've been to 3 of the locations now. Looking forward to getting out to the Heath location here soon when I'm back in town, because we've got some family that live out that way. And the patio is just perfect. And whether it be the Lakewood location, I had lunch out there on Thursday, or the Coyton Campbell location, we ate out there last weekend. The patio is just great. So really enjoy getting over to Manny's, and all their food is so good. We did the appetizer sampler last week, so that was really, really good. Enjoyed that. So appreciate Manny's. Again, say queso for 10% off your order when you either do dine in or carry out. So appreciate their support of the On the Pony Express podcast. And one last thing, big note here, Cinco de Mayo, May 5th. If you don't speak Spanish or don't even know what it is, we're going to be at the Lakewood location on Mockingbird, 6 to 8 p.m. We're going to have some guests. We're going to kind of do a live show. And, of course, we'll enjoy some of Manny's famous margaritas out there on Cinco de Mayo. So I hope you guys will join us. We'll pass along more formal details of that leading up to it, but really excited to have that event and get you guys out to Manny's and enjoy the patio. So we'll be out there. It'll be a lot of fun. So, all right, let's wrap up with this. I want to give my final thoughts, a couple of big winners of spring before I sign off on the podcast for a couple weeks. But SMU wraps up spring with a private scrimmage on Friday. It's already filled. It's closed. I mean, you can try to call or whatever, but pretty sure it's all locked up now. But they're going to get after it on Friday. They'll have a nice visitor list from what I understand. And then the week after that is their May 2nd huge recruiting weekend, which Dean Rawlsky will preview for you. We'll have a ton of tidbits and coverage on that on the site. But when you see this spring and you see it's already gone in a blink of an eye, that's what happens when you start March 25th and you end up, or March 26th maybe even, and you pack it all in 4 weeks. It flies by. But so they are just hitting kind of that final few practices here. I mean, they might do a walkthrough style before the Friday game. So I don't even think they've really got much else. The biggest thing is they're going to try and stay healthy. And I would say, before I get into my winners, that SMU, I don't want to say they lost spring in this regard, but they had a couple guys that got banged up that you're kind of like, man, that sucks. Like spring ball, the whole idea is to obviously get out there, do some install, get back to fundamentals, stay healthy. And SMU lost Jonathan Jefferson to a knee injury. And last time we talked to Rhett Lashley, there's no formal word on what they're going to do, but if it's that up in the air, it's not good. So I don't think he's lost for the season or anything like that. And Rhett said that as much, but it's something that now we're going to have to watch, and we're going to have to watch his recovery and see if he's out there for fall camp too. So when you lose defensive tackles and then they don't get their summers, or they're kind of coming back, it's kind of like Logan Parr last year. He kind of took some adjusting right when he got back from that shoulder injury. I mean, it's going to be one of the same things for Jonathan Jefferson. He's going to have to work his way back into shape quickly whenever he does come back. So that is one to watch. Then you had Matthew Hibner, which Rhett said it was minor, tendonitis, I think is what he said, but something to keep an eye on there, because RJ Maryland is also coming off a torn ACL. So that's tough on your tight end room. So I kind of think SMU didn't necessarily come out the best in spring as far as health wise. And I mean, granted, last year, I think, I could be wrong, I think they were pretty much perfect on the health front. So the strength staff, the health, the physicians and all of that on the team doctors will get them all right and get them all situated. But I will say, I just, compared to other years, I just don't think that they necessarily came out as well as we would have thought or hoped going in. So I guess it could be worse, of course, but something to keep an eye on there with some of those injuries that we've talked about. But I do want to pick a veteran / transfer winner. So guys that have come in and this spring have done well. I want to pick one on each side of the ball. And then I want to pick a freshman winner on each side of the ball. And then we'll kind of wrap up the podcast, and that'll be it. So I am going to go with, as far as the veteran / transfer winner, and on the offensive side of the ball, I am going to go with Adam Moore. And Adam Moore is a big kind of breakout player this spring for SMU because he's been able to get all of these reps with RJ Maryland and Matthew Hibner missing a chunk of spring, in RJ's case, all of spring. And then you have Trip Reardon in there and Stone Eby, of course, but Adam Moore has really flashed. I mean, this is the type of player that we saw this spring that SMU hoped that they were getting. And kind of, you go back to his freshman year, they really thought he was going to end up playing a lot, and it just didn't work out that way. But man, what a player he is. And I mean, Rhett, look, I don't know if this is kind of coach speaky or don't transfer speak or whatever, but Adam Moore really looked the part in spring, and SMU has got to be really excited about their tight end room as a whole, because when they're healthy, it might be like top 5 in the country. I mean, look at the versatility, look at the production, look at all the different pieces they have. It's got to be pretty solid. So I would say Adam Moore was probably the big offensive winner. Some runner-ups for you guys, just for some discussion. I would say Jordan Hudson, Derek McFall, Chris Johnson Jr., Addison Nichols, PJ Williams. Those are probably my winners of spring, if they were getting ribbons instead of trophies. And then on the freshman side of the ball, I would say the big winner has got to be, it's got to be Jalen Cooper. I think the 4-star wide receiver came in All-American and was able to just really find his footing early enough, running those routes over the middle, getting some high volume. It seemed like he was picking things up early on in spring. Had a couple moments where Rob Likens was like, why are you running that? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? But that's okay. That's when you have choice routes, it's hard. You really got to read coverage and you got to recognize it. And I think Jalen Cooper has really come along. And I think out of the two, I think he would probably be the one that would be first off the bench, so to speak. I don't know that to be the case. That's just what I see in my eyes. So Jalen Cooper, I mean, on 3, really high on him, really had him moving up the ranks, had a good All-American Bowl experience. So he continued that and showed out really well this spring. So wanted to give him a good shout out as well. Do want to remind you guys as well, before I get to the defensive side of the ball, that we are also presented by our friends at My Perfect Franchise. Andy Ludicky, myperfectfranchise.net, can help you out when it comes to franchise ownership. He can walk you through all of that. His services are 100% free. So you can just chat with him about SMU. You can chat with him about vacationing down in Orange Beach or wherever down in Alabama where he lives. And you can get the inside look at where things are trending in the franchise ownership business. So, and if you do contract to start a franchise and go down that path with him, he will donate money back to SMU's NIL Collective. So pretty sweet deal there. Just give him a call, 404-973-9901. Andy Ludicky, myperfectfranchise.net. All right, we wrap up here with a couple thoughts on these defensive winners. And the big veteran transfer defensive winner for me, man, I would say that the veteran transfer winner, this is probably one of the hardest picks, I would say. And of course, we'll hand out ribbons, so to speak. But I'd probably go with Alex Kilgore. I think he's had a great spring. I think people are really excited about him. I was doing some research on so every year Athlon Sports has me help them do their depth chart and their breakdown of SMU. If you pick up Athlon when it comes out this fall, I'll be in there. And I was doing research on Alex Kilgore and obviously the whole thing. Man, Kilgore had 56 tackles. I think almost half of them were solo. And then he had a few PBUs. He had a pick. I mean, he's just all over the place. And he really has continued that this spring. And his maturity and his talent level has really jumped up a notch overall. And I think you've got to be really excited about what Alex Kilgore can bring to the table. And now that he doesn't have a Kobe Wilson and Ahmad Walker there kind of really holding on to the snaps, Kilgore can kind of run the show himself with Zakai Barker next to him. Really good situation for SMU as a whole with those two starting linebackers. But man, Kilgore is, even the early goings of spring practice, I think the first 2 days he had a bunch of tackles, he had a pick, he had a couple PBUs. He was really active. And so I think I would pick him as the winner overall from spring. And obviously we're big Kilgore fans, but you could have also gone with Ahmad Moses, Isaiah Wacobia, Deuce Harmon, Isaiah Smith, Cam Robertson looked pretty freaky. Zakai Barker's been great. I don't necessarily think the defensive line is as good as last year just yet. That's why they're trying to add pieces there. But they have a starting group that I would put right up there with, any of them in the ACC. So good situation for SMU as a whole defensively, led by Alex Kilgore. When you look at the freshman side of things, I think this is a somewhat of a no-brainer for me. I'm going to go with Tyron Polley, the freshman. He kind of looks like a transfer, truthfully. He's got good size to him already from a physical build. He's not the tallest guy. He's not the freak show looking 6'3", 220-pound safety, but he's kind of got some strength to him already. And Man's had a really good spring. I think he's trending to being in that early rotation. And I don't know if he'll end up playing nickel or if he'll end up playing, mostly just kind of true safety. But he has played really well this spring. I think they feel like they've hit on him in a big way. And with that being the case, you got to feel good about the direction they're heading overall at the safety position. Once Ahmad Moses and Isaiah Wacobia, it's crazy. This is their last year, man. I remember it like it was yesterday, going out to Ahmad Moses's signing day ceremony, and he had flipped from UTSA, and just I can't believe he's already heading into his final year. So wow, he's turned into such a good player, as has Isaiah Wacobia. So but Tyron Polley, man, looks like he's next up in that line of SMU safeties that Scott Simons is producing. So with that, guys, do want to remind you guys one final time, Mark Villasana, 214-352-5656. Give him a call about your insurance. We also got statusjet.com. Get the discount on a round trip flight. You have Manny's. Make sure you say queso, 10% off. Go there. Check them out. Appreciate all they do. Thomas Auto Group, employee pricing for On the Pony Express listeners. And we hope you guys have a great rest of the Easter if you're listening to this on Easter Sunday. But if not, I will see you guys again in 2 weeks, just in time for the huge recruiting weekend, May 2nd. That's when they've got a loaded group of prospects coming to town. We'll have it all broken down for you at ontheponyexpress.com. Subscribe for just $1 for your first week. Jump on the board. It's been fun. A lot of people are joining us over there. So appreciate all of you guys who have made the jump from being a listener or a viewer to being on the message board with us. So very grateful for all of you, and hope you guys have a great time with Dean Rawlski. He's a budding star for us, and he's going to take good care of you guys on the Pony Express podcast. So I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody.
Follow us on your socials on X at SMU_on3 and on Instagram at on3SMU.
And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.